Feeding a fortress. How medieval castles preserved food without refrigeration. Imagine managing the food supply for hundreds of knights, servants, and nobles inside a massive medieval castle. No refrigerators, no freezers, not even ice boxes. Yet somehow, these stone fortresses stored enough provisions to feed more than 1,000 people for half a year, sometimes longer. Sounds impossible today, right? But castle kitchens mastered food preservation with a mix of ingenious architecture, clever chemistry, and sheer hard work. Their methods kept whole communities alive through winters, sieges, and famines. So how did they pull it off? Beneath the castle, nature's refrigerator. Castle builders understood the secret power of the earth. By digging vast underground chambers, they created natural refrigerators that held a steady temperature of about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius, year-round. The deeper you went, the cooler it got. These weren't just simple basements. They were carefully designed labyrinths with different depths suited for different foods. Deepest levels, high 40s, milk, cheese, fresh meat. Middle levels, wine and ale, absolutely essential to keep nobles happy. Upper levels, apples, roots, and preserved goods. The cellars were so sprawling that servants sometimes got lost in them. Chalk marks on the walls became their medieval breadcrumbs. One unlucky servant at Dover Castle disappeared for 2 days before being found asleep beside a wine barrel, claiming he got lost and the wine kept him warm. Amazingly, he wasn't fired. But underground storage came with risks. Flooding could wipe out an entire season's harvest. Rats could devastate stores overnight. Records describe one castle losing its entire winter cheese supply to an invasion. Salt, the white gold of the Middle Ages. When cellars weren't enough, salt took over. Salt was so valuable, it gave us the words salary and worth one's salt. Castles consumed staggering amounts, sometimes up to 5,000 pounds per year, enough to fill a small bedroom. The salt master, a real position, managed different grades of salt: fine white for dairy, coarse sea salt for meat and fish. The science was simple but powerful. Salt drew water out of food and out of bacteria, stopping spoilage in its tracks. Salt wealth created medieval tycoons. A pound of good salt could buy a sheep, and some merchants grew rich enough to command fleets of ships. Of course, it also led to scams. Records tell of merchants caught selling salt made from crushed white stones. Salt wasn't just food storage, it was medicine too. Castle doctors prescribed salted fish for headaches and preserved lemons for stomach aches. Odd? Yes, but in an age of leeches and bloodletting, it was probably one of their less dangerous remedies. Smoke, the castle BBQ. Salt preserved food, but smoke transformed it. Smoking houses, often just outside castle walls, ran day and night in late autumn. Some could process 200 pounds of meat per day, stockpiling up to 18,000 pounds for a single winter. The choice of wood mattered: oak, steady burn, perfect for long-lasting smoked hams. Applewood, a delicacy for venison and boar at noble feasts. Alderwood, favored for fish, especially salmon and trout. The smokemaster oversaw the process, ensuring some cuts hung in smoke for weeks. Hams sometimes needed 3 months. It was a smoky, laborious process, but one that left us with flavors still craved today. Pickling, preserving the harvest. For vegetables, castles turned to vinegar and brine. Archaeologists have found 100-gallon pickling vats in ruins, capable of holding 800 pounds of vegetables at a time. Castles often pickled 40 to 60% of their yearly harvest, ensuring a steady supply of vitamins through the winter. Not just cucumbers and onions, cabbage, turnips, even eggs in beet juice, which turned a shocking purple. Pickling was serious business. Castles had dedicated pickle masters who tracked every batch. They even knew tricks we still use today, like adding grape leaves to keep vegetables crisp. Honey, the sweet protector. Of all medieval preservatives, honey was the most magical. It never spoiled. Archaeologists have found edible honey thousands of years old. Castles kept vast apiaries, often with 100 hives or more, producing honey for food, medicine, and even wound care. Beekeepers were well paid and well fed, living just outside the walls in small cottages. Different honeys had different purposes. Light spring honey for coughs and cuts, dark autumn honey for preserving fruits. Honey's natural sugar content, acidity, and antibacterial properties made it a miracle worker in the kitchen and infirmary alike. Architecture as preservation. Preservation wasn't just about food, it was built into the castle itself. Grain silos held 20,000 pounds of wheat. Cheese caves maintained humidity for aging. Ventilation shafts created natural air circulation, cooling cellars without machinery. Cat runs were designed into walls so feline patrols could keep mice at bay. Specialized rooms divided tasks: the buttery for drink, the pantry for bread and dry goods, and the spicery for rare, expensive spices. Each was engineered with specific airflow and humidity controls. The human element. Behind every clever system stood people. A castle kitchen was a small city in itself, with about 50 staff under the master cook, 15 of them specializing solely in preservation. Apprentices started at age 12, spending 2 years learning preservation before ever cooking. They memorized hundreds of storage rules, learned to detect spoilage by smell and touch, and even managed food rotations to prevent nobles from eating through winter stores too quickly. The preservation master earned the equivalent of 30 sheep per year, proof that keeping food edible was a highly prized skill. When things went wrong. Even the best systems failed. During the siege of Dover Castle in 1216, flooding nearly destroyed the cellars. Staff scrambled overnight to move stores, while rats, mold, and spoilage constantly threatened supplies. Records show food tasters checking not only for poison, but for freshness, tapping jars to hear if seals held, rubbing vinegar on cheese wheels to prevent mold, and joking grimly, "If your pickled eggs turn green, feed them to your enemy." Even with all precautions, about 20% of preserved food spoiled annually, an impressive feat for a world without refrigeration. The legacy. Many of these medieval techniques survive today. When you savor smoked ham, artisanal pickles, or honey-preserved fruit, you're tasting flavors born in castle kitchens. For medieval lords, food preservation meant survival. For us, it means flavor, tradition, and a direct link to the ingenuity of the past.